how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. Having a good day so far?
Yeah, it's been busy. I also don't know why my camera always makes my like the color of my face look so distorted. It's so weird.
Hashtag no filter.
Hashtag maybe this is just what I look like. I don't know.
So yeah, sometimes we do that. We turn on it or we go on the mirror and we're like, whoa,
You're
right?
like, oh my God, who's that?
Keeping well though?
Yeah, I have. I've been
Yeah.
it's like been busy and not busy. It's hard to explain. Like, when like you're just like you have a lot of stuff to do, but it's like so like little
hmm
that it amounts to like a lot of like big things. It's just like it feels like a little overwhelming, but it's good. I shouldn't complain. I'm happy I'm busy.
Being busy, being a mom, are they in school now or?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're all in school full time, which is
Holy
like,
smokes.
yeah, it's like a lifesaver. And like with everything with happening with COVID and stuff, like, so my middle and my youngest, they have like these chronic coughs that I get too, like during the year. And I literally had to get a doctor's note to be like, stop sending them home. Like, they're not sick. Like, they just have like a cough that is going to be a cough for the next like 6 months. Because like I would get a phone call almost every day to come get them. And I'm like, okay, I can't. And like I can't. I don't even know how parents like do it like that, don't have a flexible work schedule. I'm like, what do you do? Like, if you have to be home quarantining with your kids for like 10 days and you have like an office job.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Or not an office job. Imagine working at a restaurant and you got a couple kids. Or,
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Like, it's like, and those types of jobs don't really like allow for like, not allow, but like don't really accommodate for like sick days and like,
nope. Or you can do virtual meetings.
yeah, no, you're like, so yeah, I can't.
Here's our virtual server.
Yeah. How's everything tasting today, guys? Really good. Thank you so much. Exactly.
Okay. God, imagine our world could be that one day where it's just like a tablet and there's no one actually coming to your table.
I mean, that's basically how like sushi boats are. Like in Toronto, I went to a restaurant that like the server literally, it was just like giving you drinks, but like on the computer thing you like ordered, it just comes on the little boat and you get like whatever you get. And
That's
like,
so cool. I think they have
yeah.
one here, right? Like a sushi train, and now they have a robot.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, which
Yeah.
just freaks me out. I don't like that. Freaks me out.
Slow down, everyone. Slow down, world. Yeah.
I know it weirds me out when you see those like, those like robots that look like dogs.
Yes. Those iRobots or iDogs. Yeah.
No, I can't. It freaks me out. It's very like iRobot, like that whole Will Smith. No, it freaks me out. I don't like it.
You're not ready for the Jetsons era?
No, I'm not. No, no.
That's awesome. How's work been for you? I mean, you've been doing this for how many years now? Vosity?
Yeah, so I sold Bossity last year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, so there's a company called Colonigy in Edmonton actually. So they kind of like bought out,
hmm
absorbed Bossity. Just because I was like, I can't dedicate like the time that I need to this. And I
Right.
felt more passionate about creating my own stuff. So I have like IV skincare, which is my own product. But I've been like in the entrepreneur world since like 2016,
hmm
I guess. No, yeah, 2016, I guess. So it's been like a little bit here, I guess. A lot has happened in like 5 years, I
hmm
guess almost like 6 years. So, but yeah, so I sold that. I'm like mostly focusing now on like the social media marketing aspect and
Are you going to focus into influencer marketing as well? Sorry, one
yeah,
second,
like
Sarah.
I'm with like I'm with like an agency and stuff. Like I'm just I'm just very like I don't know, I'm very like I don't want to say picky.
hmm
I don't want to be like fake about it because I had opportunities to do things and I'm like, I'm not like this isn't my thing. Like I'm not gonna be like, try this because it's like so great. I'm like, no.
No, or swipe up for my 15% discount.
And
Yeah.
it's like a thing that I like hate. And I'm just like, I think that people like know me well enough now at this point that they know that like if I'm talking about something, it's because like I authentically like it. So it
hmm
doesn't feel very sincere for me to be like, try this, whatever. And it's like I'm pretty sure that like no amount of acting skills could, fake.
No, people can tell, and it represents you. It's like, well, does she really talk about that every day or use it every day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's one thing for me to like be like, oh my God, like I love makeup makeup, whatever, but I'm not going to get on there and be like, I use this like red lipstick every day. I'm like, no, I don't. I don't wear makeup every day. That's
True.
so,
Yeah.
I could be like, cool. Yeah. Like I like it for like a night out, but I'm not about, and I find that I've worked with a few companies so far. And there's a few companies that I'm just like, I don't want to work with them anymore because it was very much like, which I totally get from like a brand perspective and like a business perspective of them being like, this is what we want you to deliver. And this is like what we want you to do. But it doesn't allow for like a lot of room of like creativity. And so it feels frustrating for someone who is creative to be told, do this, talk about this in this exact dialogue, which
It
is
looks
like,
forced, doesn't it?
yeah. And it's like, and I'm like, okay. And then
Yeah.
I get frustrated when it like looks bad because I'm like, this isn't like me talking. And I just like the whole thing. And then I just feel like I feel like I've like failed and not delivered what they want. And I was like, I just told like my agency, I was like, I don't want to do like those things anymore. Like if it requires me to like read off a script and be like, this is how I feel about this, like it's just like not gonna happen.
Is there quite a bit of agencies here in Calgary for influencer agencies?
I'm not sure, but in Calgary, probably. I'm with an agency out of Toronto.
Okay.
So my friend Jordan started it called the Thunder Agency, and he used to work for like a much bigger agency, and kind of went off on his own, which is awesome. So there's only looks like a pretty small roster of like content creators for now. But I just kind of felt like I also felt like that was a better fit for me. Like I didn't want to be on a roster of like 3,000 people. And it's just being like, oh, this person can talk about it, like a hair shampoo, like whatever. So yeah,
Have you seen the trend though change of influencer marketing and just getting out there? Because I think people can read now the whole swipe up for 15%. It's not real. It's not authentic. And COVID has really shifted, I don't know, how we really operate and who we really are, right? The real us.
100%. Yeah, I think it has. I think that it's less. I think that well, it hasn't changed for some people, and I think that it's very obvious the companies that it hasn't changed for, because I feel like you can like sense them getting desperate, and it's a lot of like bigger corporations that I'm actually surprised like haven't decided to shift sort of what they're doing. But I guess also with bigger corporations, there's just like a lot of like bureaucracy that you have to kind of go through, and so. But I have noticed that a lot of companies are focusing more on like the experience of things rather than the actual product itself. So if it's like talking about jewelry, it's less about being like, oh, like here's this pair of earrings and like I'm gonna wear them for a night out, and it's like whatever. It's like, hey, like here's this pair of earrings that like I want to wear for a night out because I haven't been out for a night out in a long time, and I haven't had the chance to like feel special and like dress up, and like this is good for me to do this. And they're allowing people to be a bit more creative with how they present that, which I think has been really successful for a lot of companies. And as a brand as well, I've definitely stopped reaching out to as many people to be like, hey, like, can I just like send you product? It's more like, hey, like if you want to try this and you feel like it's something that like benefits your life in any way,
right?
Cool. But if not, then like no worries. Like I'm happy to pay people for their time and work, obviously, but I'm not going to be like, yeah, here's $1,000 to say that like you like my product.
No.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. It doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. And it does. I don't think it's good for like the influencer. I don't think it's good for the company. So yeah, I think that it's like 50-50. I think people who have been able to adapt are doing really well. And like, you can tell, especially with TikTok, like getting like bigger and bigger. And then there's like companies who haven't been doing great. And it's like pretty obvious with how like desperate they are with like being like, we'll send you 100 of these things. Like, please just do this. And it's like, no.
Do you think from a local standpoint, like Calgary based, we'll see a shift here with in 2022 maybe of restaurants saying, hey, let's get some influencers to actually show an experience rather than, but how do you complement the influencer?
Yeah.
Other than just saying, hey, we'll comp your meal.
Yeah. So I have noticed that like a lot of places, and I think it kind of started, I think when like Orchard opened in Calgary.
Oh, yes.
I noticed that they were like one of the first places to like get like influencers to come in and just like show off the place, have like a full meal on them and like an experience and talk about it. I mean, I'm sure obviously people have been compensated for that as well. I know people who have, and I don't know like what their compensation was or how that system works. For everybody, it's different. But I found that was kind of the first place that I saw do that. I mean, that's just what I saw. I mean, maybe there was other people doing it, but there's been a few other places like Major Tom opened, and they definitely had like a few influencers come in and showcase the experience. But it's also, I think it'd be really smart for restaurants and like, any kind of establishment to do that, because I think that it shows people actually, using that space and like eating and having fun. But it's very obvious, I think, which places have like thought about it
Right.
and like paid for it and given them a clear direction of what they want, and which places were like, hey, just come here and we'll give you a drink and just take a picture of it and post it.
Yeah. The thing is, content is not cheap. And
No.
being a creative person myself, and same with yourself,
Yeah.
it takes time. I mean, you got to go to some crazy spots in your mind to come up with
Yeah.
these ideas, and that's why they work, and that's why we're able to
Yeah,
grow
exactly.
in certain things or attract certain clients. How can businesses, I guess, find ways to understand the value in influencer marketing or social media marketing?
I think that I think that we have to learn, or businesses, I guess, and business owners and
Yeah.
whatever, anybody running their marketing teams have to learn that like not everything in life needs to be like instant, the instant gratification of, yeah, like when you have an event, let's say like we're using a restaurant as an example, right? Like, okay, you have like an event, like that like you're probably going to project to do X amount in sales for alcohol, for food, for whatever. When it comes to like influencer marketing and social media and all that kind of stuff, it's really just like a long game. So while I think it's like really cool to like invite people to come to your establishment, I think it's like a lot cooler to build a relationship with them, to be like, okay, so let's say you're like a coffee shop or whatever, come have a coffee on us, show it off. Now maybe come in next week and see like if you like to work here at this
Mm.
place and what it's like to actually be here, and maybe talk about like, oh, they have free Wi-Fi, they have like a good option for food if you want to nibble on something. Just like things like that, where
Yeah.
like you're creating more of like an experience rather than just this like one time thing, which is fine. Like you could definitely do these one time
Mm.
events. But what I've noticed of people who have influenced me to go to places and stuff is being like, oh, okay, like, oh, they're there today, like working. I'm like, oh, they're there today, like with their friends. And it's like, oh, okay, like they actually seem like they enjoy being there.
So I should
So
go check it out.
maybe, yeah, let's go like see how it is. Because whether brands want to hear it or not, and companies want to hear it or not, people talk. And just because like you pay an influencer to do something doesn't mean that they're not going to be honest with their friends and family, because there's definitely been people who have like gone to like X establishment, and after they're like, yeah, no, the food was like
Yeah.
not it. Like it was like not good. And you're like, okay. So
There's read, retain, repeat, right? Just that, but
yes.
it's that micro drip you're saying. It's not one shot.
Yeah.
It's just like slowly adding value to that user and community or whatever they're building.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, ultimately, you want to showcase what kind of benefit you are to the community, right? Like
Mhm.
what, and I feel there's like certain places in Calgary that do such a good job of it. Like I know when like DeVille opened up their like 17th Ave location and stuff, the way that they reached out to people was like very authentic. So while it was just like a very minor, like, hey, like come just check out the space and have like a coffee on us, they made a point like to remember your name. And so like when you came in, to be like, hey Sanja, like thanks for coming in, we're glad that we messaged you, whatever.
That's
And like
super
to me
cool.
that's like that, yeah, which is like, I know they messaged like 100 different people or more, but for them to
Mhm.
like take that time to be like, hey, like this, you're coming in today and we're going to make a point to make sure that we know your name, and that when you come in, the staff are like happy to greet you and give you an experience. And like I've been going there ever since. Like
Wow.
I'm like, oh, like this place is the best. Like the people are nice, and it's not, revolutionary. They're not doing anything like that different than other places.
But just a
But
little more.
yeah, it's like that tiny little like thing. And you're like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
Like, cool. This is actually pretty cool.
I was talking to someone the other day, and they're saying holding the door open. These little things, don't they just
Yeah.
go a long way in our society, in our community, and move that ball forward, especially now more than ever. We need it.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that especially now when like you're choosing where to spend your money and we're like a lot more conscious about where we're spending our money, having a business take the time to like just provide that experience, like provide like just like a just a more personalized experience, like just even like a little tiny amount is just like so important.
Mm-hmm.
And like I don't care if I'm like eating at Phil's or Major Tom or Joey's or like wherever I am, but like when an owner or a server or a hostess or whatever like takes the time to remember like, oh hey, like you were here last week and like you got pancakes or whatever, like how were they?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, like thanks for taking the time. And obviously I don't expect like every business to do that. There's like hundreds of people and
Yeah.
thousands of people that walk through their doors. Um, but you know, I think that if you want to and you pay attention, I think it's possible to do that. And I think it's possible to have that sort of more, you know, personal relationship with like your customers if you
100%.
want.
Yeah. How did you, well, watching you, you're always on video. You're not, have you always been a person that's always extroverted and been this person, or did you have to learn that and force yourself there?
It's actually really interesting because I always, when I tell people that I'm actually quite an introvert, they like laugh in my face. They're like, good one. And I'm like, no, I
Yeah.
like given the choice, like I will stay home by myself. Like I am not like a big, I always joke around, but I'm like, I don't like going out. But if I go out, then like people need to know that I'm everybody's problem at that point. So like, I hope they're ready. Cause like, I just like, I'm, that's not like, I'm not used to like
Mm-hmm.
always doing that. I did that for a long time when I was younger. I had kids young. So I really value like my alone time and like my peaceful time. But I think that's kind of why I gravitated towards video because it's like a way to connect with people and a lot of people without always having to like be on the whole time. Because, you know, I sometimes think people fail to realize that if you're watching my Instagram story and there's, let's say, 10 of the little things, that's 10 minutes of my entire day. Like, that's a very, very small portion of my life. And I can connect to you, sorry, and I can have a conversation with you. And like I can do all that without having to like step outside of my house and then do like a 2 hour like put on this, you know,
Mm-hmm.
this thing where I'm like, I have to be on for 2 hours and like excited and like whatever, which is hard sometimes. Like sometimes that's super fun to do. And sometimes you're like, I don't have the
No.
energy.
How, I mean, responding to people, because if you're making a video, people are probably going
Yeah.
to start trying to talk to you. And does that get exhausting at times, or do you enjoy that part? That's the fun part about it all.
Sometimes it gets exhausting because I think that sometimes people are very quick to like not listen to like the end or like they'll wait for
Yeah.
like they'll like do like two stories and then they'll like say something to you and then you're just like watch the rest and
Yeah.
then they're like, oh. So like sometimes and like I get like a ton of notifications and that's like a little stressful sometimes. But I will say that like 99% of my interactions with people are actually like really positive or have led to something positive.
Mm.
And you know, I do feel like sometimes I sometimes I get tired because I feel like I give a lot of like myself to those
Mm-hmm.
conversations. And while I feel very lucky and really fortunate that people trust me with things, like people who I've never met will be like, I'm having like a really hard time with like my mental health or like my relationship or whatever. Sometimes that's like kind of heavy to take on, but I always, you know, I mean, I have had people message me who have been like, I'm like not doing great right now.
Mm.
Like I'm thinking about like, I'm having really dark thoughts. And I've been like, okay, like I'm okay to talk to you about that
Mm.
because, you know, if I didn't want to do this, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
And I've kind of always been that person. Like even when I worked oil and gas, I remember like I had this like office like in a corner. I was like such a junior employee. And like all these like senior employees, like I was like 21, and these like men and women in their like 40s and 50s would come like sit down in my office and be like, huh, let me tell you about my day. And I was like,
Oh, Susan
okay.
over there.
And I'm like, okay, Kevin, I guess like here we go. But I've learned to really like that about myself. And like if I can be that, like if I
Mm.
can be warm enough for someone and to feel like they can tell me something like that, then like, okay, I'm happy to do that. So I do enjoy that. I do enjoy talking to
Do you
people.
feel you're an empath?
100%. Oh,
Yeah.
100%. Like I can walk into a room and like I can like feel the mood. And actually, I was listening to another podcast the other day, and they were talking about how there's actually like a medical term for it. I think I want to say it was
Interesting.
like it's like HSP or something like that. It has something to do with people who are just like highly sensitive to their surroundings and can like walk in a room and be like what just went down before like I got here. Like so, yeah, I definitely I definitely feel that. Yeah.
What do you think it is? Do you think it's some sort of an energy field or aura? I know people say, "Oh, that's hoaxy," but I definitely do believe there is aura around people, and you can feel it.
I think so. I think
Hmm.
that like, yeah, I think there is. I think that it's like the same as like if you look at like animals, for example, like if you're like feeling sick or something, like my
They know.
animals, they know that they'll come like lay with me. And if I'm having a bad mental health day, like they'll come and be more cuddly with me than they usually are. And I'm like, there has to be something to explain that. Like obviously you're giving something off in order, like, and they'll feel that. I mean, and they're not humans, they can't talk to you, they don't know, but they feel like something is off. And so I do think that we have the ability to like, feel something
Hmm.
happening around us, and some of us are more in tune with it. And I'd love to be, I'd love to find out like maybe if it's something related to like childhood and stuff. Like I was an only child for 13 years, and my family like went through a lot, and
Yeah.
I didn't grow up with a lot of money, and there's a lot of like sort of disorder in my home. So I wonder if that like made me more
Hmm.
sensitive, perhaps. But like, I don't know. But I do think that there are certain people that like, you can just sort of,
Hmm.
you're just highly sensitive to like other people's like vibe.
For sure. You know how they say hurt people, or
Yeah.
broken people. I don't know what they say about that, but I feel like a lot of broken people are out there trying to help others and say, hey, you know what?
Yeah.
You're not alone. If you're feeling
Yeah.
fucked up, well, I've been there,
Yeah.
and I've
Yeah.
seen the darkest of times. So you can relate to them. But there's also a break where you also have to say, is like, okay, enough, because
Yeah.
that could be a trigger point for you.
Yeah. 100%. And I think, you know, I know not everybody is as lucky as I am in this sense, and especially with social media, because social media can be like, I mean, I'm sure like you've seen some of the awful, awful
Oh my
messages I
gosh.
get. Like, I get some like really horrible things, and I now look at that from the perspective of being like what, like what's happening in your life that you feel this way? Like,
To
why are you so
type
angry?
that out and be so
Yeah, like
angry
it's like
at
what
someone you
is
don't know.
under, yeah. And it's like, I'm like, I can't imagine, because I've been there. Like I've said things to people when
Yeah.
I was like 18, 19 that I look back at now that I'm like, oh my God, like where was that coming from? Like, what an awful thing to say to somebody. So I know that that is coming from a place of hurt, and whether they know that or not, or whether they're like ever going to acknowledge that, it's really irrelevant at this point, because like, I can only control myself.
100%.
So those things don't tend to bother me as much, which is funny. But like I was saying, I think that I've been very lucky that sort of the community that I built, and as I get older, the friends and the chosen family that I have now
Yeah.
like made,
Yeah.
they are people who support me right back. So as much as, people will write to me and say things, anytime that I've talked about myself having like a really dark, bad day, my DMs, my texts are flooded with people just being like, hey, like, what can I do? And
Hmm.
that's like super powerful. So it's like, you kind of sit back and you're like, hey, like, okay, like people care. And it also is like, when you give someone like 3 minutes of your time,
Goes a
then
long
like
way.
that, yeah, and that can make like a huge difference in their day. And so I don't think that's something, I think much to the dismay of a lot of people in my life,
Yeah.
with how much all like how consumed I am with my phone
Yeah.
sometimes. I feel like it's worth it, because I see more positive than negative things
Yeah.
from it.
What are some things? Oh, are you good with time right now?
Oh yeah, yeah, no, I'm
I heard
good.
a knocking.
Did you? Someone knock on my door? Did you hear a knock and I didn't? No,
No?
no,
Okay, that's weird.
no.
All right. Well, that's good then.
Maybe it's the weird ghost in my house. There's like for sure
Could
a
be.
ghost in my
Did you
house.
move? Or are you still in Chestermere?
No, I'm still in
Yeah.
Chestermere. But like there's for sure, like speaking of like weird cuckoo things, like there's for sure a ghost in my house. And like I don't care who doesn't believe me, like there is. So like
There's
whatever.
something there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you started obviously going within yourself and finding self-awareness through this process to say, hey, you know what? If someone feels this way, it's not me. It's a direct reflection of who they are or how they're feeling inside. Like you said,
Yeah.
hurt, anger, or whatever. Where did you learn that? I mean, that's a skill set that I wish more people had. And it took me a while to learn that. I think it's been over the past year, year and a half that it's kind of, aha, you know?
Yeah.
how I was
Yeah.
treating others, how I was treating myself. Yeah.
I don't want to say it's been like, oh, it's been like forever. Like it has been like quite recent, I think,
Hmm.
probably in the last 3 or 4 years. Um, I feel like near the end of like my marriage, I think it was
Hmm.
mostly like I do my best not to talk like poorly about my children's father because at the end of the day, like I know the internet lives on and my children will hear and
It's
see
not
me.
live, so
But
I can delete this part. Yeah, it's fine.
no, no, you're good. But like I just, that part, there was a lot of things that happened there in terms
Hmm.
of like abuse that like caused me to have to be like, bless you, really like introspective to be like, why is this person doing this to me?
Hmm.
Because if I'm to believe that this person cares about me as much as they say they are, then like, what's the deal? Like, what's going on here? And I think that when you want to do the work, like you will, it's kind of like when you tell someone they need to go to therapy. And I'm like, yeah, but only if they're ready to. Cause like you could go to therapy for like 10 years, but if you're there to hear what you want to hear and not ready to hear like what they are trying to, like what message they're trying to give you, it's actually pointless. You're just basically talking to someone and paying them to talk to them for nothing in return. So I think that it comes down to having like wanting to have sort of that relationship with people, and that comes at the cost of you having to be accountable for yourself, which is like I think very difficult. And even near the end of my marriage, when we split, we went to couples counseling because we have kids together, and we're like we should probably be on the same page with our kids and all that kind of stuff. And I had to sit there and admit, my role in sort of the end of our marriage. Like and he'll say it too, it was, very much, one sided in a lot of ways. Near the end, it wasn't. And, I wasn't an awesome person to be around. And, when you go to therapy or you talk to your friends or you kind of sit down, you journal or whatever it is that like you need to
Right.
do to kind of get those thoughts out, you sit there and you think, okay, like I have a part to play in this. And I'm a hurt person who hurt
Hmm.
people. And those people also include yourself. The way that you
100%.
talk to yourself, the way that like the things you allow yourself to like put up with, or the ways that you allow yourself to be spoken to. And obviously it's like, I don't want to make like a blanket statement because there are people in really bad, dark situations with partners, with friends, with family, that it's not so black and white when it comes to abuse. But a lot of it is saying it's like, I want to heal myself. So like, what can I do to heal myself? And, for me, I always said, I was like, I don't know where my life's going to go, but I just want to know that I've done what I have
Hmm.
to do to say in a situation, like all I can do is all I can do. And I've done everything that I'm capable of. And the rest is like up to the other person, the situation, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so I think through that sort of like, through sitting and like doing that with yourself, a lot of that comes out to be like, oh, when someone's terrible, like I really don't believe that there's a lot of terrible people on this planet who are
Hmm.
just born awful. It's like I know what I had to unpack in order to get to where I am. And like I'm still unpacking. Like this is like I go to therapy monthly. There's still lots of
Hmm.
things like things that surprise me sometimes. And I'm like, why am I like upset about this? Like, why did I react like this? And then I have to sit there and be like, holy shit, like, wow, like this moment, this event in my life has caused me to react this way or be triggered by this. And so it's an ongoing thing. But, when you're willing to unpack that, then you'll realize like why people do that. And so if I know all the things that I've had to go through, then like I can have empathy for people who
100%.
are terrible to me because I could be like, oh my God, like you
We've
have
all.
something to work through. Like,
Mhm.
and that sucks. Like that sucks. It's not a great place to be. It's brutal. It's
No.
painful.
How did
Like,
you find some of those moments or triggers? Because they could be childhood triggers that we don't even know
yeah,
about. Some were deep rooted in ancestral triggers
yeah,
through family or friends. I mean, good Lord, yeah, those survival techniques that you learn or find within.
yeah,
You don't know where you got them, but you forget them over time, and you say, "Why am I repeating these patterns? Why am I becoming this person? Or why does
yeah,
this affect me?" and to excavate your mind and find that one little pin in the haystack, it's tough. It doesn't happen overnight, does it?
No, definitely not. It's definitely, it doesn't happen overnight, and it happens, it takes time, because I think, especially with trauma, kind of from what I understand from it,
Hmm.
like obviously it's very minimal compared to, professionals and stuff. But what I've learned so far and what I've read about and learned in therapy is that when we experience something traumatic, it kind of goes into this part of our brain that, we need to be in survival mode. So like we can't always be thinking about these things that have happened to us, but they live there and they're there. And at 7 years
Hmm.
old, something could have happened to you. And then at 37 years old, you have this weird trigger and you're like, why did this thing upset me? And then it really is a matter of like you going back, like being like, okay, like year after year, and thinking like for me, between the ages of about 8 and like 15, I have very few memories. Like I have like a good memory. Like I remember my phone number when I first moved to Canada 25 years ago. Like I remember things, but there are certain parts that I think my brain, for my own safety,
Hmm.
has just locked away. And so, you know, having to unlock those things takes time and desire to do it, because it's scary, because you don't know what you're about to
No,
unlock.
no.
And
It's
but
an
I think,
onion, right? You're peeling the
yeah,
layers. Yeah.
but I think it's important. And I don't think it needs to be like a do it all now. Like, no, like we have whole lives to like improve, to be better, to like understand. And, as time goes on, I remember when EMDR therapy first became like sort of more mainstream, of people having to sit there and be like actually reliving traumas. And
Oh my
um,
goodness.
yeah, it's crazy. It's super effective, but it's like it's really difficult, because it could really bring up things that like you genuinely like don't know about, that you have forgot about. So, but again, like it's the desire to want to do that, and also the desire to want to do it for the reason of bettering yourself. You know, like I don't want to unlock a memory or a trauma just to like unlock it. I want to unlock it because I want to know how that affects me now, and how I can be a better person moving forward, and how I can be a better parent, and like because I don't want to do those things to my kids, you know?
Hmm. There's a stigma around therapy or going to therapy. Um, I mean, just like there is with mental health. We
Yeah.
can say it doesn't exist, but people don't also want to surround themselves with people that are so-called sick, which we
Yeah.
all are.
Yeah.
We some are better at suppressing things, but I think when you face certain things and you overcome those micro little hurdles that we have day by day, and you look back, you're like, wow, I can't believe I was that person, or wow, that's how I dealt with it. Good Lord. But that's
Yeah.
growth, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Is there,
think,
yeah, how do you get over these stigmas? Because you're so vocal about and you don't give an F, which I love.
no, I really don't. I probably should sometimes, to be quite honest, because
Yeah.
I'm a bit of an overshare, and probably why I actually enjoy therapy, because I get to overshare with someone who's like not really judging me in any
Hmm.
way. It's actually, I always find it so surprising that there's still like a stigma around like mental health and like therapy, especially after COVID. I'm like, none of us came or not came out of this. Like we're still in this, but none of us are really coming out of this like being like, you know what, okay, that was fine. Like I'm okay. Like even people who have had, didn't have to quit, like
Yeah.
didn't have to lose money or didn't have to do this or that or whatever and experience like tribulations, like whatever. Like we've all been through something. Like as a collective society, it's been hard. And I heard somewhere that like you can test the stress level of a society, and that typically our stress levels of society, work, life, whatever, is about at a 6. But it's like over a 10 now, basically, because
Wow.
it's like, okay, so like I'm already at a 6, and now add my kid's getting sick, that's a 7. So add work, like paying bills,
Hmm.
that's an 8. So it's like all these little things. And I'm like, I'm so surprised that people like don't want to get help, or maybe don't think that they can get help. But I also think that sometimes, and like this might be like controversial to say, but like I think that ultimately every person is a bit of a narcissist. like a little bit. I think we are all a little bit like not like in a bad way, but I think we're all,
We all
ultimately
are. Yes, of
look out
course.
for number one and, want number one to be number one and be the most important and for people to tell us that we're awesome and great and that
Hmm.
we're doing a good job. And a lot of admitting that you have mental health problems,
Hmm.
issues, and going to therapy is admitting that like you might not be number one right now and that like you're not as awesome as like you might think you are and that there might be some things that like you're at fault for. Um it's like kind of when we tell our kids like it's like why can't you I do this? It's like, oh, just cuz I said so. And it's like, yeah, because you don't want to say like, oh, because I don't have the energy for this, because I don't have the time for this, because I don't have the desire for this,
Hmm.
because it's annoying, because I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to go to the park because I hate the park. Like,
It's
it's
cold.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, instead of just, unpacking the reasons why, it's just easier to be like, it's because of this. So maybe I'm feeling, depressed. It's the weather, it's work, it's whatever. And it's like, I mean, maybe it is, but maybe it's more, but definitely it's scarier to find out that it is more because then you're gonna have to be like, oh shit, now I have to like go back and be
Hmm.
like, peel back the layers and be like, okay, why? So then we have to admit that we're not perfect,
Nope. Nope. We aren't. I mean,
which is hard.
you were just in Amsterdam recently. How was that?
It was good. So, and I connected through Amsterdam because I was going to Scotland. So I spent like a week in
Mm,
Glasgow, which was epic. I went by myself, which was
wow.
my first time ever doing that. I've never traveled alone. I've traveled like alone because my family lives in Serbia and like I've obviously like gone to see my family, but I don't really count that because it's like I'm staying with people. This was literally just me by myself. Every day was like me looking at a map, trying to like learn how to take the subway system there and like the trains. And um that was like incredible.
Oh,
I think every single person at any chance they can get should travel alone. And if, traveling to a different country is not within like your means or budget or whatever, then like just going for like a road trip
yeah.
by
Go to Red
yourself.
Deer. Yeah.
Like literally, and it's like, it's so like, it's hard to like have to sit with yourself because the first couple of days I would be like going for dinner and I'd have my podcasts in or, my music and
Hmm.
my, I'd have my Netflix show and I'd like watch that. And then the last few days I would just like sit there. I would just like sit there with my own thoughts, drinking a glass of wine, just kind of being like, like, why did I feel the urge to come here? Like, what has brought me to this point in my life? Like, why am I here? And that was hard. Like, that was really hard. I on the plane home, I got really emotional. And it felt like I was just kind of releasing like a lot of things that had like happened to me in the last 2 years. And it was really like powerful to be able to be like, I'm leaving that in Scotland. And now I'm coming home being like, I know who I am. And a lot of that was being like, I like who I am. I can hang out with myself. I'm not bad. Like I have important things to say and important thoughts, and I'm interesting. And I, care about people and I provide a lot of good
Did
to the
someone
world.
devalue you to say you're not important or your thoughts don't matter or what you're saying doesn't matter? Or was it oftentimes yourself saying that to you?
I think initially it was like I kind of, like I love my parents. So it's
Yeah.
not like me being like, yeah, fuck my parents, they suck. But being Eastern European, being an immigrant, you
Of
come
course.
and you get told a lot of like, it doesn't matter how you feel. It's just like get the work done,
Mhm.
like do your school, you can't fail, you can't do these things. And then in turn, when you do fail, or when you aren't doing awesome, it's your fault. You know what I mean? It's like,
Mhm.
well, like you did this. And it's a lot of that eventually turns into self-talk, and it's a
100%.
self-fulfilling prophecy. And then, looking at my past relationships with like
Yeah.
any man that I've ever been with has been very similar to that, where, they've said like, oh, well, in a fight, it's like, you're this. And then it's like, oh, like maybe I am that. And then you
So it
start like
all started
believing it.
coming and playing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then like you got to sit back and be like, fuck that. No, I'm
You're
not
like,
that.
I'm
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 not.
rocking who I am. Yeah. I'm
Yeah, like
gonna.
I'm not what
Mhm.
anybody says that I am. And, even still to this day, I
Mhm.
mean, good or bad, people will say, really good things about me. They're like, oh, you have all this under control. Like you have your shit together. And I'm like, no, no, I don't.
No.
I really do
Every
not.
day, people don't also, like you said, the 10 minutes they see, they don't see how you put yourself together. Sometimes you're not
Yeah.
together, but you're trying your best, and
100%. Yeah. It's like a very small snapshot of like a much larger picture.
yeah,
And so, when you see, it's kind of like the whole, we see like a mom at a playground with her kids and she's like on her phone and we're like, oh, she's not paying attention to her kids. I'm like, or maybe she was just pushing them on the swing for the last 30 minutes and she just needs like 3 minutes to herself. Or maybe she's working, or
maybe she's
maybe
accepting that e-transfer that will provide dinner that
maybe,
evening.
or maybe she's actually just being like, I don't care. I'm
Sure,
playing
you don't need an
Candy
excuse,
Crush.
right?
Like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
Like, and that's okay. Like, that's okay. But like, we're
Mhm.
so quick to be like, oh, like your life's all together, or like, oh, this person's a mess. And, I've had a few people, it's actually really funny. I've had a few people who, when like you mean to send one person a DM,
Yeah.
but you reply to the person.
Yes.
I've had people do that and like talk shit about me as like a parent
Oh.
and being like, ugh, she like never has it together. And like, she's always forgetting stuff. And like, honestly, I've written back, I'm like, you're right. I am always forgetting stuff. I'm tired. I'm a single parent. Like, I'm exhausted. So you're right. I am. And I'm sharing this because there's other people who are the same.
Yeah.
So like, it is what it is.
I mean, you have 3 kids.
I do. Yeah.
Good gosh, yeah.